what we're looking at is our complex fills. Again, your complex fills are created with a series of multiple short stitches that sew back and forth in order to cover a large area. They are most commonly used for large pieces or complex shape pieces. Again, unlike your satin stitches, they lay completely flat in your garment and create a higher stitch count. And the angle of your complex fill can only go in one direction. Think of your complex fills as drawing with a can of spray paint. So again, the other thing we need to look at with complex fills is that not only is it a stitch type, but it's also something that the computer is doing for you, so that when you go ahead and create a shape, if it needs to break that shape up into multiple pieces in order to start where you told it, end where you told it, and go at a certain angle, it's going to break it up automatically and put running stitches in between those areas. Again, as far as your locks and your trims, I think they're going to make more sense when we do the design as a whole, so that you'll see how they're working. So again, once we do that, and that'll be after our long break, I think that's going to make more sense to you. So let's jump back into our software. And just to kind of show you what exactly a complex fill is, it's a little bigger here. Oh, it's not going to let me do that again. Let's see. There we go. So let's create a new file. We're going to get our complex fill tool. And again, a complex fill can be any odd shape you want to make it. It can be curved. It can be straight. It can be multiples of just that. So any odd shape that you want to create, again, make sure you close it, hit your Enter key, tell it where you want to start, where you want to stop, and the angle that you want your stitches to be in. So again, if we go into our draw clock, you're going to see what we're talking about here. Just slow this down and hit start. So you're going to see it start to break up that shape and put in the running stitches for you. Everybody kind of see what that did? As far as when there's gaps, what you have to look at with this is what's causing the gaps. Some of it is going to be how it pulls on the material. So part of it is, do you have the right underlay underneath of here? Now the other thing is that if you have the right underlay, you can also change under your quality control. You're going to see you have what's called overlap lines. So overlap lines is wherever it meets. Right now it's doing one extra line of stitches. If you find that that's not enough, you can add to that. So you can add 2 lines, you can add 3 lines. I mean, whatever you're doing, it's going to go ahead and add that. Okay? So again, it's adding it right where those meet. So it's adding an extra couple lines of stitches right there. Now, as far as patterns and that thing goes, just like we had, you can use all of your standard patterns, and like we said, it does default to pattern 1. You'll also see that we have our carved patterns available to us here. So you can come in and select any of your carved patterns, and I'll put that in 3D for you. So any of your carved patterns that you want to use, you can definitely come in and use those. You will also see that you have your programmed patterns. So again, underneath your programmed patterns, you're going to see that there's a program pattern section. So you can come in here and select from all the different programmed patterns. And these are meant to be open. So, I mean, that's not something that's not supposed to do. And again, some you're going to see, this is a really bizarre shape, so it's kind of hard to fit some of these bigger patterns in here. Let's see if I can get something else in here. It's a little smaller. There we go. As long as you have a complex fill of any type, so again, as long as it is a complex fill, you can go in and adjust that. So again, that's an adjustment for a complex fill only. Okay. Do we have any questions about this one before we jump back into our designs? Because we're going to do some complex fills without holes, and then we're going to do some complex fills with holes. So we're going to go ahead and start a new file. Again, like we said, you can always use your wizard and pick a fabric type. Then what we're going to do is we are going to go in here and go to image load. And we're going to pick our shapes 2. Again, just to reiterate how we changed it, we went to image, backdrop select, right click, reference tool. Again, we said we were going to make these 6 inches. So we're going to go to our complex fill tool. We're going to select color. Again, if you're not on Quick Draw, it's the letter Q. You're going to go around your shape, hit O to close, hit enter, tell it where you want to start, where you want to stop, and again, you get one angle, that's it. And then we can go into our tab here under connections and put in our lock stitches. Go to our commands tab under stop and put in our trim. Now again, even though this is curved, realize we are still only going to get one direction for this. So when we go to our complex fill and we pick our color, you're going to go left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, O to close, enter. Again, tell it where you want to start, where you want to stop, and again, you get one angle. Oops, I guess it would help to move that angle. So I get one angle, and that's all I'm getting. So whatever direction it goes, it's going to go in that direction. Again, even down here when you have an odd shape, the same thing is going to apply. O to close, hit enter, tell it where you want to start, where you want to stop, and your angle.
Hello. How are you? Good. I'm just kind of looking for a khaki colored hat. Just a plain Jane hat. Is that all you guys have right there? The khaki color? Yeah, it's pretty small.
So those do not have holes. As far as a stray stitch wear,
Okay.
let's hit I and turn this off. So I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. So it's on a particular shape. Oh, on the yellow one. Let's look at the yellow one. On the left hand. So I'm not really seeing on the left hand side where you've got like a, it's not really, I mean that's the stitches as they're coming down. It's not really a stray stitch.
How much are those? How long does it take to get
And sometimes when things are blown up, something that might look like a stray stitch really isn't a stray stitch. Arc, let's see, the left hand arc on the right side. I mean, whatever you're seeing, it's got to go around and make it. So, I mean, they're not really stray stitches. And I guess you'd have to sew it out and see what you're really talking about. But again, I don't really think there's any stray stitches on that one. All right, so let's go ahead and bring up our shapes with holes. So we're going to go to image load. We're going to get our shapes and letters design. I'm going to go to our backdrop select, go to reference tool, make it 6, close it. So again, anytime you are working with objects that have holes in them, what you're going to do is you're going to plot the outside of your shape first. You're going to hit O to close. Then you're going to start to plot the inside holes. Again, you're going to have to hit O to close each of the holes. Once you're done closing the last hole, then you're going to hit the Enter key. So we're going to go to our complex fill, go to our color. Again, you're going to start going around the outside of your shape. O to close. Start plotting your holes. O to close. O to close. O to close. Again, start plotting your points. O to close. Again, that's our last hole. You hit enter. Then you tell it where you want to start, where you want to stop. And again, click and drag to get whatever angle you want that to be. We're going to go ahead and put in our lock stitches. Let's kind of go ahead and look at some letters now. So again, it's the same concept when you're doing that. So you've got your complex fill, you're picking your color, you're going around the outside.
This one, right?
Yeah.
O to close. O to close. Enter. Again, it doesn't matter if it is a curved object. Now, as far as being able to add steels, again, it depends on the level of software that you have. For those of you who have Illustrator Extreme or Maestro, you do have an automatic steel border. For those of you who do not have that, then you would have to draw a border and you don't have a steel stitch tool. Okay. Again, as far as adding borders, like we said, it depends on the level of software that you have. You have automatic bordering, which you'll get into during your intermediate class for those of you with Illustrator Extreme and Maestro. If you are using your Creator product, then you're going to see when we do the design from start to finish that borders would have to be drawn on the artwork. You can't just automatically add them. So let's go ahead and do this one that's curved. O to close. O to close, hit your enter key, tell it where you want to start, where you want to stop, and your angle. And again, you can always switch your angles around, but again, realize you only have one. Okay? Now, the big differences that you see between satins and fills are always going to be when you start getting into things with holes. So if we were doing, let me just move these. So if you were doing the letter O, which has a hole in it, as a satin, you would do it exactly the same way. Biggest difference is you have multiple angle lines because it can turn with the shape. O to close, enter, tell it where you want to start, where you want to stop, and your angles. And it would help to pick the right color also. Okay, so again, if you're doing something like that, it's going to be done exactly the same way. Where things start to change are going to be where you can't just do something as one big piece. When you get into your A, if you were to just do this as one big piece, what would happen is as you get up to where the center of the A is, you'd end up going all the way across and making a giant stitch, which is not what you want. So that's where you get into the slicing that we did during the editing class when you were correcting true types. So again, you come in here, pick your color. You would still plot the points the same way. It's what you do before you put in your angles that matters. We're going to go around the outside here. Hit O to close. Hit O to close. Hit your enter key. Again, you can put in a start and a stop. But then what we want to do is we want to come up here and get our virtual slice tool. Again, you're going to have to build a wall here, build a wall here. I'm going to build a wall here. Then come in with our angle line tool. Hit G for generate. So again, in order to switch directions like this, it has to have a wall. So again, you're building those walls using your virtual slice tool. Okay, so we'll look at the P and we'll look at the R. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our satin path.
أغسلهم ديليكيت ولا أرجعهم؟
O to close. O to close. Hit the enter key. Tell it where you want to start, where you want to stop. Again, you're going to come up here and get your virtual slice. Put your slice in. Get your angle line. Generate. Satin path. So you're going around the outside. O to close. O to close. Enter. Come in and get your virtual slice. You need a virtual slice here. Put in a virtual slice for the leg. Come and put in your angles. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that? As far as putting a slice at the corner, that's totally up to you. I mean, if you want to put a slice at the corner, you can do so, but just realize that when you do that, it's going to have a line there, just like we have that line over here on the A. So if you put them in the corner, like I like my corners in this case because they can turn nicely to do that. But again, up here, it was too long to turn the top of the A. As far as mixing things up, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. Oh, as far as where you put your angle line, no, it doesn't matter. The angle lines, the dots and the dashes on them don't make a difference. Or what one you put in. So if you put one this way and one the other way, no, it doesn't matter. Do we have any other questions on that? Okay, so the last thing we want to look at before we get our long break is your automatic applique tool. Again, as far as the automatic applique tool, the reason why we're going through it as opposed to looking at it differently, again, with the automatic tool, it's not that it is brand new. Obviously, we've been doing applique long before we had an automatic tool. So that being said, the automatic tool is allowing you to do what we used to do in 3 steps in 1 step. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to create a new file. I'm going to go to image load and grab a design here. We're going to go to image, backdrop select, right click, go to reference tool. I'm going to make this 4. So our automatic applique tool is over here. So all you're going to do is plot a closed shape over here. O to close, hit the enter key. Again, you can tell it where you want to start, where you want to stop. So again, what you're really seeing here is, if I come in here and zoom in, you are seeing all 3 pieces at once. So you can see when you're looking at your properties, you've got what's called an applique border, a run positioning stitch, and a tack down. So let's go ahead. I'm going to start turning some of this off. So the very first thing that we're seeing here is something called a run positioning stitch. Again, this happens to be the one thing that I do change from what the default is. It has what's called an offset. I really prefer that this look exactly like my piece. So again, what I do here is I take the offset here and make it 0. So it lines up exactly as what I drew. Because again, this should be what I'm cutting. Again, some people were worried about having stitches possibly hanging out past the piece. Again, that shouldn't happen, but again, that is what your run offset will do. Again, you can see that it has a stop command here. So again, if you have a stop command, the Tajima reads that as a color change. So when you're on your machine, you can force it to stop between color changes. It is also doing what we call a frame out. So again, you can see this stitch going out here. Again, it's not really a stitch, it's a jump stitch that's going out here. So what happens is it sews this piece and it's going to move your frame forward towards you so that you don't have to reach under the needles in order to glue your piece down. So that's what your frame out is. So again, it's doing a stop with the frame out and the distance is 1.97. Then I can go ahead and add my tack down. Again, obviously that does just what it sounds like. It does a tack down. So right now it's tacking it down with a running stitch. If you want to change how far the running stitch is from the edge, you can change the offset. So let's say I make it minus 0.04. You can see it's bringing it inside a little more. And other than a running stitch, we can also tack this down with a zigzag. Again, if you're doing this with a zigzag and you want it wider, you can go ahead and change the tack down width. So here's your zigzag. And you can also go ahead and make this an E-stitch. So again, an E-stitch is what a lot of our quilters use. So sometimes that is all you need. That might be the finishing item. So you can always output at this point and not ever put that heavy border on it. But again, if you want the heavy border, you can go ahead, and I'll make this a run again. Turn on your applique border, and again, it's doing a steel stitch around here. So if you wanted to go ahead and make that wider, you could. So it's making it wider. If you want it to look like a zigzag, you can take density out. So you can see it'll take density out, make it look more like a zigzag. Or you can change that from a steel to an E-stitch. Or you can change it to a programmed running stitch. So it's all in what you want it to look like. Now the other thing with your applique, so again, this would be your applique. You can also create an applique cut line. So again, the applique cut line would be as if you have an Ironline cutter or a Gerber cutter or a Roland cutter. And you need to export a vector file to that cutter. So you would create an applique cut line. So again, just like when you were digitizing, you're going to come in and plot your points for your cut line. Go to close, hit the enter key. Again, if you think it's off a little bit, you can always go in and line up your pieces. So you can see you can always go in, make that completely perfect. So again, remember whatever you do here is what it's going to cut. So you want to make sure they're absolutely perfect.
دقيقة خالص.
So again, that applique cut line that we talked about, that red line is what would be saved as a vector file. So again, this can sit in your design. It's not going to hurt anything. Then to use it, you would go to File, Export, and Applique Cut Line. And again, you can see that you have 4 different vector file formats. So whichever one your cutter reads is what you're going to go ahead and export it as. So yes, as far as the PDF covers everything we're going over today. Do we have any questions? Again, we are coming up to where we're going to let you take your long break. We're going to give you an hour break. Do we have any questions on anything we've done so far? Again, any questions that you come up with during the break, feel free to post those. Do we have any questions? We're going to go ahead and let you take your long break. Again, like we said, as far as setting up your shortcut keys, again, all of the keys that we're using here are using what we call the standard shortcut. So as long as you have not changed it from the standard shortcuts, which is what it comes in at when you load your software, then everything in there will be the way you're going to do it. So the handouts have the new shortcut. Well, they're not new. They're what's for version 14. If you chose to go back to different shortcuts, and you're going to have to know those. Do we have any other questions? Okay, we're going to go ahead and let you take that break. Again, if you do have any questions during the break, then you can feel free to post them. Again, everyone have a great break.